when I talk about the letting the river flow, it's remembering that we are connected to that divine source. All that energy is with us, and our job is to have a vision, is to open to the infinite possibilities. We've talked so much about how our life shows up, and we think we have to fix our life, so we get so involved in the minutiae of what do I do next, how do I handle this, what do I do with this situation, and we forget to move back to the truth that we are the source and to hold a grander vision. So, my question is, do you want to be the reactor to your life, always focusing on what's happening on the outside, or do you want to be the responder, the source, the creator of your life? And the truth is that's who we are, and we get stuck in the creation. We get focused on the creation, we forget that we're creating it. So being in the flow, letting the river flow, we are the river. We are the river. We are that source energy that's moving through us. And so, what is your river? If you are the river, if you are that energy, what is your river? What I came up with for myself is, what is my grand vision? What is the energy that moves me forward? And it's something that you decide for yourself. And you decide it for yourself, the little self, with the energy and the guidance of your big self. And the big self is the part of you that's sending you those messages, those visions, those dreams that lift you, that give you energy, excitement. Sometimes that energy, excitement can show up as fear because we have this focus on the outside world. We're not sure how things are going to happen, or if we step into our truth, is somebody going to be mad with us? Are we going to step on other people's toes? Am I going to have some resistance? And yet if we hold to the vision, if we trust that we're the river, we are in this source energy that is way more powerful than we can ever imagine. I mean, just imagine for a second what it would be like to try to stop the energy flowing through you right now. What would you do to try to stop that energy?
Hold my breath.
Yeah. Hold your breath. And how long could you do that?
A long time.
A long time. Until what?
You pass out.
And then what happens?
You breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, so that energy, and you're not thinking about it, but your heart is beating. Your food's digesting. There are, I have it in my notes somewhere, here somewhere, there are the brain capacity. Let me see if I can find it. Anyway, as I move through my notes, I'll get to the exact number. But the electromagnetic impulses that go on in our brain each day far outnumber the cell phone usage on the entire planet. Just your brain. Just your brain. And guess what? The electromagnetic impulses of your heart are greater than your brain. So that's how much electrical activity is going on around you. When you come into coherence, which for me means when your brain and heart and other chakras or energy centers are in balance, it's when you move into that alpha state in your brain and you stop trying to focus your life on what's happening out there, which is basically what causes stress and what causes us to move into the beta states. Especially the high beta state is when you are in fight-flight, which an awful lot of us, when we have stress in our lives, we've got a problem that we need to figure out. We're in fight-flight. We're in that high beta state, which means we're totally focused on the outside world, the creation, rather than the creator, and we are in a particle state rather than a wave state. I mean, this isn't mysticism or metaphysics. Well, actually it is. But it's also science. It's quantum physics. And that's what the quantum state is. It's opposed to being in the thermodynamic state, which is really the Newtonian thing. It's thermodynamics that, you know, the body's going to wear down. We're cause and effect. That's the old way of being. we have moved into, not just spiritually, not just mentally and with a sense of understanding through our unity principles, but science is now confirming what spirit and the great spiritual teachings have told us all along, that consciousness affects matter. When we move out of the denseness of the body and being so focused on the outer world and into the inner source, we move from particle to wave, which means we're much more fluid, we're much more able to affect matter. Consciousness affects matter. And consciousness affects matter when we are truly connecting mind with emotion, with a clear intention. We pull ourselves away from our creation, which is done, and we move into the creative center. And that's the difference between responding and reacting. And if we are, to go back to my river metaphor, if we are that river, if we are that energy, that source that's always flowing, we are connected to everything through that water essence, that water source. And the grand vision, for me, is the ocean. The grand vision is that depth, that water always finds the path of least resistance. And it's always moving down. It's interesting, because our spiritual talk is always about being somewhere up there. And yet, we talk so much about grounding. My basic spiritual belief grew out of my yoga practice, which came because my body was so out of balance I needed to do something. So I began meditating and doing yoga, which began pulling my consciousness fully into my body, and that's where I found balance. And we talk so much about grounding now. It's about being present and trusting this energy of being present. And that fluid energy, that river, that source that's flowing, is always flowing downhill into the ocean, which is the lowest part of the planet, but it's fluid. We've talked about that the last couple of weeks, that freedom, that flow, that non-resistance. Water simply moves around any obstacle, moves up and over. Water also exists in these clouds, the energy of rain that's all around us. So it's in the air that we breathe as well. That's why I love San Francisco and the fog and the moisture in the air. It has that feminine, creator, non-resistant energy that's always flowing. And so it's important to look, we talked about it in the car on the way up, look at the thoughts that come up, the choices we make. Where are we putting our energy? Are we putting that energy or drawing it in to go towards our grand vision? Are we calling in these tributaries that allow the river of the energy that we are to expand and grow and become that rushing Amazon? Or are we going off in all these tributaries, going, oh, I should be going over here, oh, this person's bothering, let my energy go here, let this pull me off? Or are we saying, no, I'm holding that intention? And I like the word intention rather than goals, because a goal is particle. It's something solid that we have to get to out there. And intention is something higher, something that we're moving towards with an intention, but it's fluid. We intend for this to happen, and we're willing for it to look however it looks. So it's different than a goal. The ocean, it's your ideal self. Just like your intention. Your intention, I intend to be a loving person. I intend to have joy and happiness in my life. I'm not sure how that's going to look. I intend to be a conscious creator, to be a creative person, to create the things in my life that bring me joy, that bring joy to other people. I intend to be a loving friend and partner and family member. So these intentions, they're a way of being, rather than a goal of something. I want a house on the beach. That may be part of my intention. When I think of having a house on the beach or a house near the ocean, it feels good. It's kind of changed over the years, especially with the tsunamis and stuff. It's like, well, maybe I want a house where I can see the ocean and I'm nearby, but I'm high enough. Because the ocean and the earth is very powerful. We also talked about that on the way up. We were talking about the disasters that happen. We call them disasters. Nature just calls them coming into balance and growth and evolution. I want to try to get to all the things I had to talk to you about, and I want to also pay attention to the clock. So who do you want to be? This is the idea of intention, your ideal self and your authentic self. And trusting that, or looking at the possibility that who you want to be and what you're inspired to move towards is ultimately who you truly are. So it is your authentic self. So we're on this journey as these rivers, letting this river flow. And it's guaranteed that we're going to be home. Because water finds the path of least resistance. And no matter what tributaries we go off on, or where we go, or whether the sun comes in and causes us to move up into a cloud, and we start the journey again, ultimately we're going to get to that ocean. We're going to get to that grand space. So for me, it gives me the ability to let go, to take a breath no matter what's going on, and trust the greater energy and greater power. And in taking a breath, it also, most of the time, allows me to once again reconnect with that divine or grand intention and get clear of where I want to go. And then I can step back and look at my life, and again and again and again, I say, very often after I've faced the challenge and taken that breath, wow, this was for my highest good. This thing that I thought, oh my God, this mustn't be happening, this is the worst thing that could happen, it moved me to that greater awareness, that greater understanding. It reconnected with that bigger river, and I'm back in the flow again. It's the rapids that we go through in life. If you look at a river, and we saw the Russian River a number of times, I thought, look, there's the Russian River. Each time it looked different, but it was the same river. It was flowing in the same direction. It was going to the same place. So another thing I'd like you to focus on right now is one of your heroes. Who do you look to with admiration? I mean, I have mine. One of the first ones was Miss Diana Ross. Very early, her voice and who she was, and as I grew up and began to understand the dynamics of the world, realizing a young black woman at that time who stepped forward and said, I am a dynamic queen who can sell out Central Park, who can, I mean, all the stuff that she did from where she came from, it inspired me. Nelson Mandela is another one. Martin Luther King. Mother Teresa, we talked about her a couple of weeks ago. So as you focus on your heroes, those people that inspire you, recognize that they are a piece of you. You wouldn't be able to see who they were or be inspired by them unless you have that same energy, that same dynamic, that same vibration inside of you. And if you look at those people, they are people who, in a sense, detached from the outside world of what was supposed to be, and they trusted that inner source, that inner river, and they held to a grand vision. They didn't know how it was going to get them where they were going, but they had a vision that they held to, and they followed the energy of that vision. You know, Nelson Mandela, when he was in prison, and he first got put in prison, he spent the first 10 years of his life bitter and angry. How could this have happened? I'm locked up. This is the worst thing that can happen. Focused on the prison and being stuck. And then he was sitting in a cell one day and I guess got tired of feeling angry and bitter and stuck, and he went into his heart, and his heart said, what would it feel like to let go of this anger? What would it feel like to let go and look at the possibility of maybe getting out of here and creating a new country? And so he began visualizing what would need to happen for him to get out of jail, and it meant people's minds would begin to change. And he began writing letters to the United Nations, to the United States government, sharing what his situation was like and his vision for what a new country could look like. And eventually, he started getting answers. Eventually, they started printing some of his letters, and his country began to change. And then he began to think, well, if this new country is happening, who would be the leader? Who would step forward to lead this country? And he began thinking, well, maybe I can do it. And for me to be the leader, who and what would I need to be? So he began letting go of his resentments, of his angers, of anything that would keep him from stepping forward to being a leader. So here's a man who's in jail, bred as a criminal, expected to be there for life, and his vision changed the country, changed the world, and he, we know what happened with him. So that's how powerful a vision is, when you hold on to it and trust it. And I'm inviting you to look at, with my metaphor here, that vision, your grand vision, and you know what it is, even if you don't know consciously, there's a part of you that knows what it is. That vision is moving you towards that ocean. It already exists. It's there. And that's what the Unity teachings tell us. The minute you get an idea or a vision in mind of what you want, it's already created. In spirit, it is there. So it's trusting that energy. So I want to share a little bit of how to stay in the flow with the river. Give you some practical things to look at. We talked a couple weeks ago about whether positive thinking works. And we had a little bit of a debate back and forth. And my sense was that positive thinking, yes, it does work, but it's part of the old paradigm, because as soon as you go into positive thinking, you have to acknowledge that there's the negative thoughts, and so you're constantly fighting against the negative. So what I talked about this week with myself and in some of the groups that I did, some of my clients, we were talking about the use of affirmations. I had a client that asked me if affirmations work, and it brought me back to the positive thinking thing. And he shared an affirmation with me. He said, I said, well, give me an example. He said, well, my affirmation is, I get up and run every day. And I repeat it. And I said to him, I said, I do think affirmations work. And I said, but they really only work when you use them creatively to connect them with your feeling center. Because you can go on and on, I get up and run every day, get up and run every day, get up and run every day. But then if you wake up in the morning and say, I'm tired, I don't feel like running, your feeling center is going to be more powerful than that mental center. And we've all dealt with that, right? We can affirm whatever we want, but if we affirm something we don't believe, or we affirm it in a way that doesn't connect with and get our emotional center involved, move us to what we call the elevated emotions rather than those lower, denser ones that are particle centered. We move into the wave center emotions like joy, excitement, love, gratitude. So we need to use our creativity to do that. What I'm inviting you to do this week as you flow in that river is to draw in your creativity as part of that river, part of that energy. We are conscious creators, and when we are in the energy of creating, we are wave. We are light beings. When we're in the energy of fixing and figuring out and outer focused on some problem, we're particle, and those problems, we're going to keep running into that solid problem. So we need to be in that creator space. So to say an affirmation like, I run every day, you can say it again and again and again, may not do anything. The guy who was sharing this with me said, I said, you get up every day by using that affirmation? He said, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I said, well, how about this? I get up and run every day because it fills my spirit with joy and my lungs with energy, and I love it. How does that feel? His whole face changed. Oh yeah, that feels better. So this is how we use our creative energy to connect and activate this emotional center. Because as we said earlier, when we're in coherence, which means we move out of our head center into our what they call the heart mode, it means all of our energies are working together. Our mental working is in balance with our emotion in a place that feels good. That's why our emotions are so powerful. Because they tell us what feels good. They tell us where we want to go. We talked a couple weeks ago about the ants. Do ants have feelings? And you sent me a beautiful colleague sent me a beautiful story that she had about this ant, who she saw this ant stopping and helping to carry this injured ant back to safety. And that the energy to do that must come from a feeling place. The things that motivate us. It's not our thoughts, it's our thoughts that then connect with the feeling. So it's our thought, it makes us afraid, and then we want to fix so we don't feel afraid anymore. More powerful thought is the thought that inspires us and gets us excited, and that moves us into the river, that moves us into the flow where we're aligned with that God, the good, omnipotent. And I know it's very hard for me to get through a talk without using that, our famous unity saying. So I'm going to use it again. And as I say it, I want you to trust that this is the river energy. This is the ocean. This is the energy that is all around us, and that the substance that we use to create what we want. One power, one presence, active in the universe and in my life, God, the good, omnipotent. All